I wanted to change things up a little bit. Like, I was thinking about doing something for football, but I want to get this video out of the way because it's been on my mind for the last couple days. Okay, so Scott Adams, for those that don't know who he is, he's the person that created the Dilbert comics, which began in 1989 and has been published in thousands of newspapers across the nation and the world, translated in many languages. Had its own TV show for a brief period of time in 99, 2000 with Daniel Stern as the lead character. And besides that, I didn't know this until recently. He's been a successful author, writing several books that have become bestsellers on politics, philosophy, so on and so forth. And he recently, on his live stream, was looking at a poll from Rasmussen, a rather controversial polling place. It's divisive. That showed that 53% of the people that they interviewed that were black said that when it came to it's okay to be white, 53% said yeah, 26% said no, and then 21% said not sure. And looking at it at face value, he looked at that number and he said that, that he doesn't identify as black anymore, and he's a white person now, and that we should stay away from black people, and that they're a hate group. It just felt very weird. I've never seen his stuff before outside of Dilbert, so seeing that firsthand felt very, very odd, and it definitely sounded pretty racist. Like, it sounded like, at least at face value, he meant every single black person stay away from, they're a hate group. And, you saw also online, the term it's okay to be white does come from 4chan, which has a lot of people there that are racist and have used that as a way to deflect from the Black Lives Matter movement and the organization itself. And as a result, he was dropped by many, many newspapers. His distributor, publishing company, decided to cut ties with him from a business perspective, and he's effectively been canceled. But he's going to be coming back on Locals, which is the Dave Rubin run organization where you have to pay $7 a month to read all the Dilbert stuff. So let me get my 2 cents on this. The first one is pre-research and the other one is post-research. Pre-research, I think he got what he deserved. I believe that, judging by at least from when it started, I have no idea why he would say such a comment. He did go on Chris Cuomo and several other outlets, and he even talked on Twitter a bit, that he was trying to stir the pot. He didn't truly mean what he meant. He didn't mean all black people. But I still have some questions. I mean, I don't believe Scott Adams is racist. But then again, this is also a person that, digging into his research, has said some controversial subjects in the past and on Twitter. And he said that Charlottesville was staged. And I don't know. Again, I don't know if he truly believes all the stuff he says or if he's trying to get a reaction. He says that he does stuff like this to get a reaction. Okay, but I do personally feel that when it comes to this, if you know that your job could potentially be on the line with the many years you've done writing Gilbert, drawing Dilbert, you should have known better. You should have known that saying stuff like this without a disclaimer could potentially change your life and lose most of your income. And it looks like it has. Decades of hard work, in many ways, gone because of his own ignorance. I don't believe he's racist. I think if he wants to have a dialogue, he needs to be a lot more careful with his wording. And I am happy he was able to do it. But I also do feel like he's not helping his own case in many ways. Like, he may say that socially he may be left of Bernie, But from everything we've seen from his social media feed and whatnot, he is definitely on the right side of the aisle, and he's a Trumper all the way. He has definitely been someone that questions things a lot more than he should. And again, he does this to stir the pot. He's a provocateur in many ways. He knows that it brings attention to himself. But eventually, there was going to come a time in which it would affect his life. And again, here it is. But the funny thing about it is that Adams expected this would eventually happen, and he almost feels somewhat liberated about it. And to be fair, he does have a bit of a point, because when he has the more subscription-based outlook for Dilbert, he probably would be able to be a bit more edgy with his humor, probably say a bit more, naughty language. And I also feel like this gives him a chance to be more open about what he actually feels. And, this definitely stirred the pot, and it did create a discussion. But a lot of the discussion also went to how, we should get rid of Dilbert, we should get rid of him. A lot of people view him as racist. Again, I do not think he is a racist. I'm not saying I agree with what he says. Not at all. There's a lot of stuff that he talked about in the past that I do not agree with. Do I think it was right to cancel him outright? I can understand from a business perspective why companies would do that, especially if you are running a publication that has a primarily or a large portion of your audience is Black or African American. I can completely understand why. And I can also understanding why, in order to make sure your viewers are happy, you get rid of him. Though it took this long, considering this could have been the final straw, or this could have been just a one-time issue. But either way, most of his income's gone. I mean, don't worry, he still was worth tens of millions of dollars, so he's living a-okay. But his reputation in the eyes of many people will never be the same. Yeah, he'll still be known as the guy that created the Dilbert comic strip, and it is a great comic strip. It's up there with Garfield, Peanuts, some of the best of all time. However, the art is one thing. The artist, in particular Scott Adams, his reputation is, for the most part, in many people's eyes, down the toilet. A lot of people view him as a racist now, fairly or unfairly. Do I think we should have nuance about racial conversations? Absolutely. Is it true that people are more comfortable being around their own skin color, the people that agree with them? Absolutely. That is also true. I do think we should have those conversations. They may be hard, but it has to be done in our society. I'm someone who's not a conservative. I identify as a Democrat. I am liberal. Scott Adams, based on his tweets, he is definitely way more conservative. He is way more pro-Trump than I am. What he needs to do is embrace other Black people more. But I also find that some of the words he says, like, I identify as Black, like, why are you saying stuff like that? Again, it's just to create a reaction. I don't know if he actually believes this stuff, but it just feels so weird why he would want to do this. I mean, were you thinking that you were unstoppable? Is he so much of a narcissist? I don't know. This is me personally. I would not mind interviewing Scott Adams on Zennie62 Media. I would not mind it. Even though most of us are more liberal here, I do think that we should hear what he has to say, because maybe there is something. Now, I also understand the perspective of not wanting to give a platform to someone who may have questionable views about that. Is correct. But I also know that there are a number of Black conservatives that agree with him, and the people that he does know that are Black also agree with him. Now, do they represent every Black person or the majority of Black people? No, they do not. What about other Black people? There's some that understand, some that don't. many black people, just like many white people, they all feel very different things. And I do think there is a conversation here to be had. If there is nuance, this is a guy that is pretty smart. He has written numerous books. He said that his IQ is around 140 plus. I do believe it based on what he's written about for his main books, for his book series outside of Dilbert. But I think he needs to. He said he's also not going to apologize either. So if anyone thinks he's going to apologize, he said he would do the same thing all over again. So he probably sees that this has gotten a conversation. It's brought attention to himself, and people have had no choice but to talk about it. So in many ways, he could view this as a success. But for him too, like, was it really worth losing almost everything you have just to make a point? I mean, and he is someone that it's not, he wants a Black History Month. He's happy with, HBCUs. He's happy with, affirmative action. He knows there's a large amount of systemic racism in this country. He knows that stuff. He believes that stuff. So I wouldn't call him a racist if that's going to be the case. He's not David Duke. I'm not asking for him to get uncanceled. I'm not asking for the distributor to accept him back in and have his. I'm not saying that. But I do think that he's not going to. But if I was him, I would see if I could make myself a bit more calm. But, I think from his perspective too, he knows that to make sure that the spotlight's on him, he needs to say stuff like that, because he knows that if you have comments that are a little bit outlandish, you're going to have people, whether they agree with him or not, going to listen to it. And even if they're angry, it's still eyeballs, it's still clicks, it's still people giving a reaction. And, this is just the world we live in. But he should have been aware enough to know that this stuff could potentially lead him in trouble, and it did. And I do wish him the best for him. I do hope that Scott Adams does things a bit better. I hope he can make amends with a lot of other people in the Black community. I do hope if Scott Adams can speak to, the people in newspapers. Everyone loves a comeback story. And I'd be interested to see what Scott Adams is like. Doesn't have to happen, not going to happen today, not going to happen tomorrow, not even going to happen probably the next month or year from now. But I'm sure people would love to see him make a return. And in many ways, him as a person, he's getting more recognizable than ever. In many ways, canceling him might have been the best thing for him, at least in the short term, because now he's going to be embraced by a lot of people that could potentially use him for their own interests and bring people in that might agree with at least a little bit what he says, and then bring them over to his side. So whatever goes on, he kind of got something out of us. And how is this going to happen for the future? I'm not sure. But I do think it is good to listen to everything he says and know where he's coming from. And I understand the frustration. I do. I don't think he's racist. I do think he has said some controversial statements in the past, but I do not believe he is racist. So I do think that what we should do, if Scott Adams, if you're watching this, I would love to interview you here. I think that would be fantastic. I've known about Dilbert for many years. I'd love to meet the guy that was responsible for it. And I'd love to pick your brain just to know what you have to say. I would have no issue with it. But that's just my thoughts, guys. Subscribe to Zennie62 if you haven't already. Make sure to hit like on this video if you haven't already. Be notified for more videos when they come out. So until always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.